the career stuff after you get out of college is it's a weird journey how all that starts to unravel though, right?
And I don't know the actual statistics on it, but there's a significant amount of people who leave college and never use their degree.
Yeah.
It's a significant amount, which
No
is
doubt.
crazy. That's like, you're exactly right. It's like, man, I had no idea what I wanted to do as 18.
Sure.
I'm like, I just knew I didn't want to I didn't want to be outside working my butt off doing manual labor.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, college seems to be the next route. Besides that, I didn't know. At that point, I didn't even know all that much about like entrepreneurship and building your own business and like really creating, something for yourself. I just knew I didn't want to be stuck doing manual labor my whole life. And, so my parents were like, hey, you're reasonably good at math and science, and I'm like, and I'd like to make some decent money. And they're like, well, engineers make good money.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, that's good enough for me. Sounds good,
Yeah.
So, I think by the grace of God, I ended up out here in Texas and, fell in love with the place and like the people out here. And I built a great community here and, obviously never left and have no intention to.
No doubt. How long did you live in Houston?
I only lived in Houston for 2 years.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'll give you the roundabout version.
Yeah.
Right. So I went to school in Longview. And then stayed there in the Longview area. Directly out of school, I spent about 18 months doing competing in CrossFit, which you're familiar with CrossFit at all.
Oh, yeah.
So I was 35th in the world in CrossFit in 2016.
Tell me your favorite CrossFit joke when people make fun of CrossFitters.
Oh, gosh.
No, tell me your favorite one. Or your least favorite one.
Well, I mean...
Right, because comedians, man, they go after the CrossFitters, right?
Oh, yeah, of course.
And you're like, why don't you try one session?
Yeah. Well, I was the same way. I made fun of CrossFitters.
Really?
Oh, yeah. I was like, you guys are a bunch of idiots.
How'd you find it then?
Well, you're very much this way too. I would assume from an athlete's perspective, is I always love a good challenge, and so I was like just doing my normal bodybuilding type stuff. And there was this guy, and I was watching these guys do CrossFit in our university gym there at Littauer. And I'm like, these whack jobs, like, what are they doing? Like, they're flailing around on the pull-up bar and telling me it's a real pull-up, and I'm like, no, this is not. This has got to be a joke. And he's like, if you can beat me in this workout, I'll leave you alone. I'll never ask you to do another thing.
Okay.
And I was like, fine, I'll do it. And I smoked it, and I was like, I felt like, but it destroyed me at the same time.
Right.
I'm like, laying writhing in pain on the ground.
Yeah.
But
I'm sure the adrenaline was just flowing when he challenged you.
Oh yeah, I walked up out of that. I got up off the floor and I was like, it reminded me so much of all the training I did for wrestling and all the stuff that I used to do as an athlete, and I was hooked. I was like, all right, well, is that it? Is there more? And he's like, oh yeah, we can do all kinds of stuff. So I very quickly was like,
so you found it in college, in the college, in the gym, in the college gym.
I didn't know it was a thing until I watched these guys flailing around on a pull-up bar and telling me it was a real pull-up. I'm like, I don't know what you're doing, but that's not a pull-up,
Yeah.
And but shortly after, I started jumping in and doing a little bit of it, and I just absolutely fell in love. And I was like, this is the best thing for me as a former athlete to be able to jump in and
took to it like a shark to water.
Oh man.
Yeah. So you find it in college, but then after you get out of college, you're like, hey, you're going for it.
Yeah, I was. I have some natural proclivity to it, and I don't know where that comes from. Just some, God-given gift in a way. But when I first started, I'm naturally built for the sport. I'm 5'8". Right now, I'm a little heavier than I was. I'm about 205 right now. But I'm built for the big compound movements, the Olympic lifts. I'm built for, and so when I got into it, I came in at a pretty high level. I was already squatting over 400, deadlifting over 400, could do 20, 25 pull-ups at a time anyway.
Wow.
So I could already do a lot of that stuff, and so it was just combining it all.
Yeah.
So when I did,
what's the most impressive out of everything you just said? The pull-ups.
Yeah.
Pull-ups are. Have you always been able to just jump up and do pull-ups? Remember growing up when you'd go do the monkey bars?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And you'd learn. Your dad be like, "No, you're good," and then swing and swing.
Yep.
Were you just all over that?
Yeah, I was naturally. I did a lot of that growing up.
Yeah.
And then obviously you get into when I got into high school. We could talk about wrestling a bunch too. I'm sure.
Yeah.
Did you wrestle too?
Just a little bit.
High school and stuff.
Yep.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I found wrestling in high school, and it was it was one of the best things that ever happened to me.
Oh, it's awesome.
I loved wrestling.
When I have sons, they're wrestling.
Oh yeah.
I mean, they're
wrestling and rugby go right there. They go hand in hand.
Yeah,
you know,
they do.
The mindset and like the aggressiveness.
There's just not the concussions in wrestling that there are in rugby. So it's maybe a little. My mom she'll support the wrestling more than she would support the rugby. Get encouragement.
Probably. Yeah, my mom's one contingency was I had to wear headgear. You know, she said I couldn't wrestle without it.
You know what's crazy? When I found rugby, that was my mom. She was like, "Would you please wear a scrum cap?"
Yeah.
And so I was like, yeah, sure. So if I knew she was coming to a game, I would wear one. Otherwise, I'm not wearing a bonnet to play this sport.
Yeah, totally.
The pull-ups, that fascinates me, man.
Yeah.
Because there are people who can train, and they might be able to do 5 or 8 or 10. I mean, pull-ups are they're a bear.
They're a bear.